Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we are joined by the Karin Freeland. Good afternoon to you. Good morning to you, I should say even.
Yes, good morning indeed. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, it's great to have you on here. So really just to give everyone a bit of a background. So Karin is a recovered corporate workaholic. After years in high pressure leadership roles at the Fortune 500 companies, she traded the boardroom for the bedroom. In her hilarious tell-all book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir, she recounts the mishaps and misadventures she had over the past 40 years with a special partner in crime, her vagina, named V. Love it. Women of all ages can relate to this raw and honest journey of firsts, long-term relationships, and finding pleasure. Karin is also a speaker, a certified life and reinvention coach, focused on helping women transform their lives and achieve their dreams. Through her signature Edit Your Life program, she offers one-on-one coaching, giving women all the tools and techniques needed to conquer fears and find their purpose. Karin is married with 2 kids and resides in South Carolina. Wonderful.
Yes.
Great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming along today.
No, it's a pleasure to be here and share my story.
Well, tell us, first of all, I mean, what does Fire in the Belly mean for you, first of all?
Well, for me, it really came about sort of unexpectedly. When I was younger, I was acting, I was following my dreams, and I had that fire in the belly from a very early age, right out of college. I was like living the dream and having so much fun at the same time. And then I found myself in corporate for 15 very long years and had lost that fire in my belly. I was sort of just like a shell of a human being. I was kind of a zombie, really, if you will, going through the motions. Every day felt like Groundhog's Day. Like I would wake up and it would be the same thing, rush around like a chicken with my head cut off, get the kids ready for school, drop them off, commute an hour plus to work, get my coffee on the way so I'm hyped up on my caffeine, work all day at a job that I was totally unappreciated at, got bullied, harassed, just total workplace trauma, which we can definitely unpack. Come home, make some dinner, try to be a mom for 20 minutes, and then get right back on the computer, work, drink just to cope with all the stress, and, maybe spend a little time with my husband and go to bed. And then do it again the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. And then on weekends, usually work at some capacity. And it was just this most draining existence until I started writing my book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina. And all of the sudden it was like, oh, this is Karin again. Like that person that had been so deeply suppressed was resurfacing. Like, that's right, I am creative. Oh, I do enjoy life. Oh, I do have a zest for just the everyday little details and pleasures. And I started to find myself again. And the more I leaned into that and gave myself permission to explore my creativity and explore my dreams, it was like the fire just got stronger and stronger and stronger. There was that little ember almost like that was still down there, so deep. It was almost extinguished, but something then was able to breathe that life into it. And it became a really bright burning fire again. And so for me, it is just creativity and passion and doing what you love and just not having these external pressures that I was putting on myself to make a certain amount of money and have a certain title, letting all that go and just getting the chance to exist more fully.
Wow. And what do you love? What is your passion then?
Oh, well, I think I have lots of passions now, which was one of the things that was so lacking from my life for a very long time. I really took on my identity as a corporate woman. And I was so one-dimensional, that was kind of like my thing. And I hung my hat on it. And now, I find passion from hiking, being in nature, going camping. I find passion in coaching women and watching them transform their lives and live their best life. And, the little texts that I get like, hey, I just had the greatest date, or, I just went for that promotion and I got it, or whatever, these little notes that it's like, oh my gosh, this is working. I'm having such a big impact on someone else's life. I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about, helping other women through my book realize that they're not alone. Their bodies are normal. And I'm passionate about just the little things. Like I was driving the other day to go to Dollar General, and I was just enjoying, it was a Sunday. I wasn't in a hurry. I had to just return a DVD. And I look over and I see these cute baby goats in someone's yard. And I'm like, those goats are so cute. Next thing you know, I've overshot Dollar General by like a mile. I'm just busy thinking about how cute goats are, and I'd love to have animals someday. And then I circle back and I get to the light right before the Dollar General. And I'm like, there it is, Karin. Like, don't drive past it this time. We're going to the Dollar General. And next thing you know, I am looking at the beautiful country rolling hills. And I'm like, gosh, I'm so fortunate to live here. And I just overshot it again by like a mile, had to loop back around. I texted my husband. I was like, this is going to take a little longer than I anticipated. He's like, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I was practicing what I preach and just feeling gratitude for everything around me. So yeah, passion just now comes in kind of all shapes and forms.
I mean, are you living who you're supposed to be now, do you think? Are you where you're supposed to be?
Oh, that's a great question. And I think that's the problem that so many people get hung up on, is that it's a destination. Like you're just going to find your purpose, and then that's going to be your purpose for the rest of your life, and you're done. You've arrived. And I feel like I am living more of my purpose today than I have in a very, very long time. But I don't think it's ever really done, because my purpose today is very much to be a mom first to my children, which I never did when I was in corporate. And I can tell you some, terrible horror stories of being the bad mom, which I'm trying to actually weed that language out of me as well. So I don't say things like I was a bad mom. It was just, I had different priorities, and now I'm more present mom. But for me, that was definitely one of the things that I was like, I have to change this about my life. Like, I don't like how I'm living right now as a mom. So my purpose right now is to really focus on the boys. They're 10 and 12. But I was just thinking the other day, my gosh, 6-7 years from now, they're going to be out of the house. My purpose is going to change. My purpose won't be to drive them to school and be there to pick them up and ask them how their day was and make them feel loved, and put little Post-it notes on their mirror so that when they wake up in the morning, they see positive messages. I mean, I won't need to do that anymore. So my purpose is going to shift, and then I don't know what it will be. So yeah, right now, my purpose is very much coaching other women, inspiring other people to make the change in their life and hopefully avoid a midlife crisis, and, be a beacon of hope for people who feel stuck and frustrated.
Mm. Well, and then what inspires you then? What keeps you going? Because I mean, you have a beautiful energy about you. So what sort of makes you shine in the morning?
I do practice gratitude. So for all of my corporate life, my first thing every morning was to turn on my cell phone, my work cell phone. I had 2 cell phones for a long time, and my gosh, was that emotionally draining. So I would turn on that work cell phone, and a flood of emails would come in, especially my last 3 years in corporate, because I worked for a British company. So they were up and they were already, 5 hours ahead of me. And boom, here comes this flood of emails of all this stuff I have to do. And the dread would start. And I just be like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I gotta do this. I gotta do that. I got to try to work out this morning because I got to be healthy, and I got to do all these things. And I haven't even put my feet on the ground yet. And I'm already stressed out and overwhelmed. So now I have had to make a very conscious shift, and it wasn't easy. And that's why for a while I called myself a recovering corporate workaholic, because I still had days where I just instinctively, it's like you have to change your habits. I just reach for that cell phone next to my bed and check it first thing. And I realized again, it was starting to stress me out. And I'm like, oh, right, I didn't update this page on my website, or I got to do this, or I got to do that. I got to submit, to talk, speaking notes or something to somebody. And I was like, stop. What am I doing? Back it up. What am I grateful for right now? I am so grateful for the chance to just take a breath, that I woke up this morning, that I am healthy, that, I got to take my car to the shop later. You know what? I am so blessed that I have a car, that I can afford a car, and I can take it to a shop, and there is a shop here that can fix it. And just once I started having this like daily practice of gratitude, I'm not saying it's like a cure-all and that you never have a bad day. No, no, no. We're human. We're living a life. We're going to have bad days. But I now start my day on such a different foot that I feel inspired. I feel excited about what the day is bringing for me. And I sort of describe it this way, like life now is happening for me instead of to me. Because I spent so much of my corporate years, definitely the last 6 or so that I was there, feeling like life was always happening to me. Like I had no control. I was just at the beck and call of a calendar invite. You know, my day was not my own. My life was not my own. And now it's like, I get to set the tone. I get to set the pace, and I'm in so much more control, and I get to experience whatever life is going to pass my way today.
And what, like, where would we find you in flow state then? Where are you in your best, you're almost subconsciously just in your creative genius, if you like?
Yeah. So now, I mean, the book is written now. Certainly when I was writing the book, you know, I would just come home from work at night and I would be like a machine. It was almost like my body was taken over by another being or something. And I would just have these ideas for a chapter and come home and be like, well, what about this time and this time? And I got to put this on paper. And it was like, it would just come out of me. You know, but I needed silence. I needed the kids to not be around so that I could really create and get the full story down. You know, I didn't love writing always late at night, because I think for me, it was like, I was starting to lose some of my creative energy. So, you know, that like 8 to 10 was kind of my sweet spot for writing. So I've always felt really in flow state there. But now I would say a lot of it is when I'm coaching, when I am with a client and I'm just asking her the right questions. And I say her because I pretty much mostly work with women. Mm-hmm. But asking her the right questions and seeing that light bulb go off and, you know, giving her the space to be just authentically who she is and being present and holding space for another human being. For me, that's like the ultimate flow state.
Mm. Well, let's give you a proper introduction on the book. So, I mean, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a Penetrating Memoir. I mean, I love the title. I mean, that's good. It's catchy itself, right? You know, it's and plus the you know, the front cover. It's all it's quite provocative. Is that the best way of putting it?
I think it is. I think provocative is a great way to put it. And yeah, I think sometimes the title and the book cover in a way can be misleading because people assume, oh, well, what could possibly be in there? Is she just talking about the list of conquests that she's had? Is this all sex? And don't get me wrong, it does not disappoint in the sex department, but it's not just that. It really is this entire journey through womanhood from very young, 5 years old, even realizing, oh, I have a vagina. Like, what is this thing between my legs and how does it work? What does it do? To getting your first period and being like, I don't even know how to use a pad. Like, how does this thing work? And I'm trying to MacGyver it in my underwear. And it's like, I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Why would I want to wear this? This is terrible. And I had been so excited to get my period. And then I get it. And I'm like, oh, this sucks. You know, who signed me up for this? To being in relationships and having sex for the first time and chasing the orgasm and being like, I didn't even know there was such a thing as an orgasm. What is it? How do I get one? Like, and then struggling for years to figure out how that whole shebang worked, to getting urinary tract infections and literally living in a house full of women in college in a sorority house and being too ashamed and scared to tell a single person, hey, I got a problem and this is what's happening to me. You know, do I have an STD? Am I like, what's going on? And kind of like trying to get through that experience on my own. So, and then it goes all the way on through birthing and having babies and the effects of afterbirth and how your body recovers or doesn't recover. And in a way, you know, emotional trauma that you go through, sort of mourning your pre-baby body and then learning to accept what you've been dealt, you know, the hand you've been dealt and what you've been given. So, I mean, I always say, yeah, the book's about my vagina, but that's just kind of for shock value. It's really about so much more. And the women who read it will tell you it is super funny, so relatable, unlike anything they've ever read, because it is my most intimate moments. You know, it's not 50 Shades of Grey where it's some fantasy story, you know, it is real, which is also terrifying that I've told people all this.
When the book actually came out, I mean, how was that moment for you? Because I know for myself, I hid for 3 days. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, well, I wanted to in a way. I was surprisingly, well, I shouldn't say it's a surprise. I was extremely nervous the day of. Like, I think I went to the bathroom like 10 times. I was like, I'm going to die. I don't have anything left in me. Like, I was so nervous. And I think part of it was because I didn't know if anybody would even show up to the book launch, or if I was just going to be standing there with a big vagina cake by myself and have to like drink all the wine alone. But we actually had a really great turnout, which was amazing. I was blessed when I moved down to South Carolina from New Jersey to get involved with Junior League, which is a women's service organization. And those women really showed up for me and came out in droves. So that was such a relief and a blessing. But what most people don't know is that I almost didn't publish it. I actually sat on it for about 3 months after it was fully written before I did any work on publishing it. I am self-published, so I did it myself with the help of my editor and his team to actually turn it into the print version. But I was scared. I thought, well, this was all really fun and games until someone has to read this. And what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm a slut? Are they going to not let their kids come over and hang out with me? Or, you know, with my kids? And, you know, how are people going to perceive me? What are people going to think of my husband? What are people going to think of, you know, my kids? And there was so much shame in some instances where I thought, I don't know, maybe I don't really want to share this. Maybe this was just a really therapeutic way for me to like get out of corporate, relive my life. It was a passion project. Maybe I'll just let it go at that. Maybe that's enough. And so it wasn't until, thank God, I had a coach, a business coach, who was actually helping me with set up my coaching business. And I was kind of telling her, you know, I don't know what to do about this book. And she was like, hold on. Okay, what do you want out of the book? What do you envision for the book? And she said, when I answered that question, that my whole face lit up. She's like, well, you know, put aside all the judgments of whatever but like, if you had your way and you could wave a magic wand, like, what would you want the book to turn into, to become? And I was like, I want it to, you know, be a bestseller, and I want it to become a TV show. And we've already written the treatment. And like, you know, I want every woman to read this book and it to become like her battle cry. And she was like, okay, you need to go back and watch the recording of our session today, because the way you talk about this book and the passion you have for it, she's like, I'll never tell you what to do, but I don't see how you cannot produce this book. I mean, you were way too excited about it. And I was like, okay, I don't know. And then I went back and watched it and I was like, dang, she's right. I was like, I have to do it, because even if it sells one copy and it changes one woman's life, it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. So I was like, okay, I got to do it. And so then obviously I did. And, you know, it's been received differently depending on the person. Being in the South, they're not as comfortable with their body parts, I guess, as maybe some other areas. You know, New York, New Jersey, everybody's like, whatever, you know, like it's not much of a shocker for people. But I think down here, you know, there's like some Southern, and I actually love it, but like the Southern Belle type of thing. And it's like, you don't really talk about your vagina. Like, excuse me, you said what? You know? So some people are a little like shy about it, but I think that's part of the problem. And that's why we have to make this a more comfortable conversation, so that women aren't walking around thinking that their body's weird or feeling shame when this is happening to every other woman. It's just, we're not talking about it.
it must be one of the least favorite things for people to talk about, right? They'll probably sooner tell you what's in their bank account than they would talk about. I mean, you've got locker room talk, you've got sort of whatever, but it's actually when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, and you know, as you say, it's not all sort of sunshine and roses. Sometimes it's bloody awful, right?
Well, who wants to turn around to their girlfriend who they've known for years and say, I'm not having regular orgasms when I have sex with my husband. That, like, who wants to say that? I mean, I don't know, but most of us want people to think we have an amazing sex life and you should be jealous of my sex life. And, I've got it all together and look at me. We have a sense of pride in that. And then to turn around and get really honest and transparent and tell someone, no, I actually don't have an amazing sex life. Like, it's okay. It's not terrible, but I think there could be more. And I'm feeling really frustrated by the fact that I'm not experiencing what I think some others are experiencing.
Yeah.
That's really a vulnerable conversation that I don't think a lot of women are comfortable having.
The way you describe it, it's almost like your vagina's had a better time than you, or had a more.
I swear she has. She has. And this is one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize is women are very in our heads. So while a guy is being intimate, there is usually very little going through his mind from the men that I've talked to, right? They're like, oh, boobs, oh, like, it's just like, okay, right? It's all very visually stimulating. When I'm having sex, I'm thinking, do I look cute right now? Do I have a belly roll? Oh, am I making a weird face? Oh, I got to do the dishes later. I forgot to put those away. And I'm enjoying it and I'm having a great time and he's great. But as my head is so noisy. So over the years, I mean, my husband and I have had to talk about how do we get my head to turn off so that I don't feel this pressure. Oh, I'm taking too long. My gosh, he's not going to want to be down there for much longer. I better, okay, should I just fake it? Right. And there's all these emotions that go through your head. And I tell my husband, he's like, you really thinking all those things? He's like, I'm just thinking about how hot you look. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, all this stuff's going through my head and he doesn't have that problem. So, we have done things like added music and, just had a chit chat before we kind of get into it, just to kind of like clear out anything from the day. And then I can be more present in the moment, or, just little things here and there that have created intimacy in other ways that then make it that much more powerful for when we are actually physical.
How connected do you find that women generally are to their own bodies in general, not just their vaginas, but their actual bodies and as a whole?
Well, it's interesting because I think some people are more connected than others. And that's always a bit intimidating for me because I wrote this book originally with the title, I Don't Know My Vagina, because I really did not know how the damn thing worked. And I have actually a disclaimer in the front from Dr. Lori Mintz, who is a certified sex therapist and professor. And she's actually got a thing on the back of the book, a little endorsement, which was fabulous of her to read this. But she actually said, Karin, you've used the word vulva or vagina when you mean vulva. She's actually like, you've used the words quite wrong in this book. She's like, I appreciate the comedic value of it. She's like, but I think you need a disclaimer in the book. So I literally have on, page 2 in there, a little disclaimer from Dr. Mintz about the actual anatomy of the female body. So I'm still learning. And when this is just kind of like a funny story about not necessarily not knowing your body, but just not knowing in general, like how to be sexy sometimes. So I have had the worst luck with lingerie. And my husband got me this really cute, like bustier, and it comes with the underwear and the little garter belt. Well, I don't know how lingerie works apparently. And I put the underwear on first, and then the bustier, and then the garter belt and the socks. Well, you can't take the underwear off, obviously, then, because it's between the garter belt and the socks. So I go to do a photo shoot for my book and my website back before the book's even launched. And I'm like, I want to do a couple of shots in lingerie. So I come out of the bathroom. The wife who's doing the photo shoot for me, her husband does the lighting. And he takes one look at me and he's like, you've got that lingerie on wrong, right? And I'm like, what do you mean it's wrong? He's like, Karin, the underwear goes over the garter and he's like, otherwise, how are you gonna get the underwear off? I go, we just slid them to the side for the last 20 years. Who knew? And he's like, oh my God, you really don't know your vagina. Like, but it's just this like comedic, I was 40 at the time and I'm still learning about how this whole thing works. So yeah, I think we do a fantastic job as a society of just keeping busy and not ever taking the time to get in touch with our bodies, to realize how we're feeling. And also, you know, with the midlife crisis, just like, what do I actually want out of life? But we have so many distractions, so we just kind of ignore it.
I mean, sex education, body awareness, anything else, how did it all start? I mean, was there any sex education? I mean, did that come from the family or school, or what was it?
Yeah, no, I mean, my parents' sex education was to not to. Like, don't do it, right? Get married and then good luck. I'm sure you'll figure it out then. So that has not been our approach. With my kids, I am still trying to preach abstinence and say, hey, wait, knowing that they're probably not going to. I mean, I certainly didn't. You know, I was 14 when I lost my virginity, which was quite young. But we are obviously educating them. And since I've been writing the book, I mean, we've said the word vagina at the dinner table more in the past 2 years than I think ever any of us combined. So they are learning about periods and how making babies and the egg gets fertilized, and so that they will have an understanding, a basic understanding of how this all goes down. And I think that's one of the biggest areas. And I hope that my book will help some parents through those conversations, and at least make them realize you have to have those conversations, because even if you think your kid's a saint, I mean, my parents didn't know I was having sex, you know, they thought I was keeping my legs closed. And there was, you know, no talk about birth control. It was like, no, if I put you on birth control, that's a license to have sex. Well, I'm having sex anyway, so we can either protect this or we can not. You know, and I'm not saying that that was right or that I should have been. I was definitely too immature for as early as I started, but I did, and I can't change that. So like, let's at least make sure people are educated on it so they understand what the ramifications are, and you know what they might experience, so that it isn't this awkward thing that you then get married someday, you're older and you're like, oh, I don't get it. Like, you know, from a guy's perspective, like, why isn't she enjoying this? Why isn't she making noise? Why isn't she getting off like I do? Oh, right. Because they don't get off from penetration alone. Like, oh, I didn't know that there was such a thing called the clit. I didn't know I needed to stimulate that, right? There's all these things that, where are you going to get your education from? Porn? It's like literally like the worst place to get sex education from, because you're playing to a camera, right? Like it's not authentic. It's not real. You know, yeah, like you bump your head on accident in the middle of sex, or you like fall off a bed, or like things happen. There's weird body noises and like whatever. And you're like, oh God, what was that? Like, that's just normal, but you're never going to see that in porn. So it's like the worst place to get your sex education, I think.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Very true. And I mean, how is the book being received by the likes of your parents and your partner and the boys even, you know, as well? It's mixed audience, right?
Oh, totally. So I think my parents are like, okay, good for you. You wrote a book. That's fantastic. Really wish it would have been like a murder mystery or maybe like fantasy or something else. Like, you know, I don't think they're thrilled about the content. But I don't blame them for, I mean, why would you be really excited about that? That's just not their generation, you know? But my husband, it was actually his idea to write the book. So that shocks a lot of people. But I write all about it in chapter 30, all lubed up with nowhere to go. It was during the time that I was getting ready to give birth to my son. He was about 7 months old, or 7 months in gestation. And my OB said you need to prepare the body for birth by putting some olive oil on your vulva, and that way it won't tear during the birth. Anyway, it was like a whole shit show. There was like oil flying everywhere. And I'm like, this isn't working. I can't get my hand in the right position. And I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm just not doing this. I just hope that like tiny heads or loose vaginas like run in my family and we'll be all good. And he comes home and there's olive oil everywhere. And he's like, Karin, what happened? You know, I'm trying to explain this to him. And he's like, oh my gosh, you know what you should do? You should write a book and call it, I Don't Know My Vagina. And that was it. The book was born. So he's by and large been supportive, but I definitely think there are times where he's looked at the book and read a chapter and been like, you told them about the videotape we made. Oh my gosh. Or you told them about the time we had sex in your parents' house. I can't believe this. Your parents are going to kill me. So it's a little bit of a roller coaster with him. And the boys, they don't know enough about what it's about because they know they are not allowed to read it. So they're just kind of really proud of mommy at this point, and they still want to be seen in public with me. Now, my son's getting to preteen, so I don't know, in 4 years when he realizes what the book's actually about, he might be mortified, and not, he might want emancipation. I don't know. We'll see. But for me, they were never my audience anyway. My audience are other women just like me who have felt shame about their body, have felt like they're weird, like this is the only one they're happening to, this is happening to, that had babies or are going to have babies and feel like no one's really telling them what to expect. Am I the only one whose labia tore? Like that, those are my people, right? The women out there who just want a better relationship with their vagina. They want things to go a little smoother down there. And they can just get some commiseration, some validation that like, no, you're normal, girlfriend. It's all good. Like this is happening to everyone.
I mean, who are your people? Do you know? I mean, is it who you expected them to be?
Well, it's interesting because I think right now, just based on my typical audience and my reach, most of my audience is more like 35 to 55, which is very in line with my coaching, for people who are kind of getting to that stage where they want to reinvent their lives. I actually thought that I would get a lot of the younger audience, like the 25, 30, who haven't had babies yet, who totally want to see like, what is this all about? But they're just not really in my network yet. So I gotta work on my marketing strategy a little bit and figure out how I reach some of the younger women who I think are really going to benefit getting ahead of the game, and knowing this stuff before it's happening to them.
And how, or do you link your vagina to corporate life? I mean, are they one and the same? Is it a life strategy? What is it?
Gosh, this has kind of been like the ultimate question. And I think that I need to figure out a better link. For me, writing the book was just very much my passion project and my way of shifting my thinking and realizing that I could do something other than being in corporate. And it gave me the permission to dream again, to feel excited, to just do something that I loved and get myself to the point where I could actually see a pathway out of corporate. I could see a pathway to freedom and not have to stay trapped in this life that I didn't love anymore. So that the book for me was just really more about empowerment and empowering myself and empowering other women. Whereas the coaching is more like, okay, that brass tacks, like, how do we retrain your brain? What is the thing that you really want to go after in life? What are your main goals? And then how do we make everything line up behind that? What do we need to take off your plate, put on your plate? Like, how do we need to change the way you're thinking about yourself, your confidence? So sometimes it relates to your vagina. I mean, I have some clients who've come to me and they want help with dating or, but by and large, I haven't really found a great way yet to connect the book with the whole corporate thing. Because look, try posting this book on LinkedIn and it's like crickets. No one will like the post. No one will comment. They'll DM me and they'll say, hey, I saw your post, but I can't interact with that because I don't want my company to see. And I'm like, I get it. But at the same time, it makes me so angry because I'm like, this is the problem. Like the fact that every woman has to basically shrink and feel like, oh, I shouldn't have a vagina or something's disgusting about me or I'm weird. Like this is what's holding women from showing up and being authentically themselves, being that sexual feminine being and a badass in heels at the same time, but we just have to kind of pretend like, oh, I don't have a vagina. Just kidding. I don't have a sex life, like it's so odd to me how we just kind of compartmentalize all these little pieces of our lives. And we never really just get to show up and authentically be who we are wholly.
Are you your whole self?
I think so. I hope so. I think I'm certainly more my whole self now than I was 2-3 years ago. But I'm sure it's a journey and there's still work to be done. And I still have my days where, I let like an old thing that happened to me in corporate get in my head and I start to harp on it and go, oh man, maybe if I'd done this, or maybe if I just responded this way, maybe I would have got the promotion, or maybe I wouldn't have been let go or whatever. And then I catch myself pretty quickly and say, hold on, you're so much happier now. What are you worried? Like this, it was all a piece of the play. Like it had to happen. It had to play out the way it did. Let that go. That's not serving you, and I can quickly kind of regroup myself and get back on track. But yeah, I think I am my whole person now.
Mm. And are you good at calling yourself out? I mean, you talked about almost that inner chatter, being aware of it. I mean, some people can pull themselves out of it. Some people need to reflect externally through support, coaches, whatever, right?
Yeah, I have gotten so good at it. It's almost like, and my husband is like, like, I'm coaching him too now. And he's like, you're coaching me again. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't help it. I'm like, I just want to talk everybody out of it. But yeah, no, I've gotten exceptionally good at this. So what would have, if something happens, and I'll give you a great example, and this is like so embarrassing, but, and it has to do with the book, but not the book in that sort of embarrassing way. So I was reading the reports for my book incorrectly. So I thought in 1 month that I had sold like almost 1,000 books, and that I was going to make like $4,000 or something. And I was like, so excited. I'm like, yes, this is happening. It's it. Like my book is finally taking off. And then I realized I was reading the report wrong. And it was myself and 2 other authors that were in that number that are all under my editor's account. And in like one moment, I went from selling like 700 books to like 20. And that, I'm not going to lie, that stung. It hurt so bad. And I had done like a couple of videos on social about how it was doing so well. And this is all happening because I believed in myself. And, you got to take the leap too. And then I was mortified because I'm so embarrassed. Like, oh my gosh, here I am like touting how great everything is going. And really I've sold like 20 books this month. Okay. And I, of course, cried because that's what I do. I just needed to get that emotional release out of me. And after about 20 minutes of like all out sobs and feeling like a failure and deleting all my posts on social, I was like, okay, Karin, you have a choice. Are you going to live here for the rest of the day? Like, you can't change anything. And literally what happened 40 minutes ago, the person that you thought you were is no different than the person you are right now. You are not your book sales. You are not your book sales. And that does not mean that because it's not selling thousands of copies, that it's a bad book or that you're a bad author. It means that people just haven't been exposed to it yet, or that people aren't appreciating it yet. I don't know, maybe I'll be like Van Gogh, and I'll be like long gone, and then the book will suddenly take off. I mean, who knows? And then I just had to like give it up to God and go, I can't worry about this right now. I can't stress over this. I need to just let it go. It is what it is. And what am I going to do now? Can this fuel me? I'm either going to let it fuel me, or I'm going to let it like tank me. And I'm like, no, I'm going to let it fuel me. I'm going to go sign up for some more podcasts on Podmatch. And I'm going to go, submit a couple more articles on Harrow and help a reporter out for people who aren't familiar with that service. I'm going to post a couple more things on social media. I mean, like, okay, I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. And, it's not going to happen overnight. So if anyone's out there trying to follow a dream, just know there's no such thing as overnight celebrities. I know we all love a good overnight celebrity in pop culture, but it doesn't exist. And you are going to work for sometimes years, months, decades to get what you want. And it's just a matter of being true to yourself and staying focused on it.
What's the old thing, isn't it? It takes a lifetime to become an overnight success, right? It's
right. It's so true. And I think that's one of the things for me. I really am at this point in my life where I want to live a regret-proof life. I just don't want to wake up anymore and feel like I have regrets. And there was a period of time where I felt a lot of regret about giving up my acting career and going into corporate in the first place. I mean, I'm no stranger to following my dreams. I mean, I acted in Miami and then New York City, and, I had a lot of great successes. Obviously nothing that was like huge, but, I had some great experiences, and finally was like, you know what? I'm 24 years old. I have $24 in the bank. Like, what am I doing with my life? Again, kind of like this existential question. I want kids someday. How am I going to raise kids on a waitress salary? What happens if I slip and fall on some grease and I get injured and I can't work? How am I going to live? How am I going to pay my bills? So I said, I know I had this like great idea. I'm going to go into corporate for 1 year. I'm going to make amazing money. I'm going to save every single penny that I make. And then in a year from now, I'll quit. I won't wait tables and I'll just act full time. Great. In theory, fantastic idea. In practice, I got a job as a sales rep at T-Mobile selling BlackBerries. Turns out I am a beast of a salesperson. So I got my first paycheck. It had 4 numbers on it. I had never seen a paycheck with 4 numbers on it in one check. And I went to a Coach store, bought a bunch of stuff and was like, I love money. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And next thing you know, I balanced it for years. I was in pharmaceutical sales then for a few years, and I would go shoot an episode of like All My Children or Guiding Light, and then come out and see my doctors and do the pharmaceutical sales for the rest of the day, and then take doctors to dinner at night. And it was all very exciting and fun. And then eventually, I was like, okay, I have to just really focus in on the career. But I was like, how did I get here so many years later, feeling stuck and frustrated and not living my dreams when I used to know how to do that. I used to know how to be creative and believe in myself. What happened from this moment where I had this great idea, but then got addicted to the money drug? And now, 15 years later, where I'm having massive panic attacks about dying and like going through a midlife crisis is the only way I know how to classify it.
Talk to us about your midlife crisis. How was that for you?
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. It is really one of the most hopeless times of my life. There's not really a better word that I can use. I felt so stuck, so frustrated, and yet so guilty for not loving my life. How dare I? I have been blessed with a home over my head, a car in the driveway, 2 beautiful boys, a pretty healthy marriage to a pretty great guy, a great job, a 6-figure salary. Who am I to be unhappy? How dare I? And it was very hard for me to come to terms with that. So there was many years that I just sort of suppressed those feelings. And I thought, well, that's nice, Karin, but this whole idea of doing what you love, that's for other people. That's not for you. You made your bed. Now lie in it and just keep going to work. Keep making that 6-figure salary. Who's going to pay for hockey? You're the breadwinner. Who's going to pay for all the kids' sports and the lavish vacations you get to go on and all the great things that you have in your life, the fancy dinners? What are you going to do? Tell your husband, hey, I've had it. I'm burnt out. I'm going to take a break. You're the breadwinner. You live in a very expensive area in New Jersey. Like, nope, not an option. So I just kept trying to go with the flow. And then like horrible thoughts just would come into my head. And I remember being so exhausted when the boys were really young and they were sleeping through the night. And I was driving my car to work and it was like an hour-plus commute. And, I wasn't getting recognized. I didn't feel like I was moving ahead at the pace that I should be moving ahead. And I just felt very overwhelmed and exhausted. And I just remember thinking, maybe I'll just drive my car into a tree. And I don't want to die. I never wanted to die because that's what was my biggest fear, was dying without really achieving my purpose and living the life that I was sent here to live. I just wanted to get hurt enough that I could be taken out of commission for like 3 weeks. Just give me 3 weeks so I can get myself above ground and be able to catch my breath again before I have to go back into this life. And thank God I never did anything and didn't, listen to that toxic inner voice. And I never told anyone because I thought, well, maybe I am psychologically damaged, or maybe there's something wrong with me, and I don't want to tell anybody that I had this feeling. And then it wasn't until years later, I was reading someone else's memoir, and she was talking about, as a lawyer, having very similar feelings and just wanting to get hurt for just a couple of weeks so she could just get a break. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've been validated. Like this, I'm not weird. This is normal, not normal, but this is common. And it's okay to have had that feeling like there was something bigger going on. And then really for me, what peaked the midlife crisis, because it started around 2016 and it peaked in 2019. And by 2020, I was sort of out of it. It's a very long time, but end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I had 2 deaths in the family. And that just shook me to my core. It was like, I am now facing my parents' death. They are next up, right? That was the end of a generation. So now next on deck is my aunts and my uncles and my parents. And then it's me. Oh my gosh, then it's me. And it was just this overwhelming sense of dread. Like, am I living up to my full potential? Like, what am I doing with my life? I make PowerPoints all day long to justify my existence to other people. I get run over by the bus in meetings, and then they back it up just to make sure I'm really dead. I can't win. It felt like it didn't matter what I was doing in my job. It was never good enough. The targets were ridiculous. I mean, the things that they wanted me to actually achieve. I mean, when I look back, it was like abuse. I was in like abusive relationship at my job. And I was like, I have to find a way out, but what? And I couldn't figure out what the what was. So I drank a lot because I needed a way to cope. And I'd already been drinking because of the stress of work, but now it was an everyday thing. I mean, it was 3 glasses, 4 glasses a night. I mean, I was going through multiple bottles of wine a week. And I just kept thinking, maybe at the bottom of this wine bottle, there's an answer. Maybe I'll find the answer in there. And the hole was just so big inside of me, so unfulfilled and so empty. And it was like, what can I put in there? Can I buy more clothes? Can I, drink more? Can I go on another vacation? Can I go out to another fancy dinner? Can we have more sex? Like, what is the thing that's going to fill this freaking hole? And I couldn't find it. And that scared me because I was like, if I don't find a way out of this, this is it. This is my life. I'm going to die right here in this little Cape Cod house in Jersey, in like an area that I don't love. And like, what am I doing? So I started, I don't even know, I guess it was probably around the time of the deaths, I started having these just debilitating panic attacks. So I would wake up in the middle of the night, of course, because I had to pee, because, once you've had babies and then you have 3 glasses of wine, you're not sleeping through the night. You have to get up and empty your bladder. And I would go into the bathroom. And I never wanted to turn on the light because, it's so blinding in the middle of the night when it's dark. So we had this like dimmer, and it was like this very low setting that you could put on. So there's like a little bit of a glow. But it would still be pretty dark. And for whatever reason, my mind would be like, you were just sleeping and you don't know what's going on around you. The world is still spinning. The earth is still going. Is that what death is like? Is this what it's going to be like? A dark, black nothingness. And it'll be like you never even existed. And that for me was such a dreadful feeling. It would be like a wave of terror, because I would almost get to this, it was almost like a out-of-body experience where I would feel almost like weightless there in the dark as I'm sitting on the toilet. And it would be like a wave would just wash over me, and I would just start bawling, and I was crying my eyes out and just feeling like, how do I make this stop? How do I make this stop? What is wrong with me? Why am I having these feelings? Why am I thinking these things? Like, I just want to be normal. Like, what is happening? And meanwhile, my husband is sleeping in the bed, and I don't want to tell him because he's going to be like, Karin, you're like a head case. What is your problem? Like, why are you thinking about death? And so I would just finally, try to get it together enough to be able to get back in bed. And then I would lay there for a while and then, wake up the next morning and be exhausted because I'd been up for an hour having a panic attack. And this just happened over and over and over for weeks, for months, until finally I didn't even know that this was a actual technique that I use with my clients now. But I finally said, I can't do this anymore. I got to change something right there. I was aware enough that I didn't want to have these experiences anymore. So I started drinking less, because I said, this is a sabotaging behavior. This is not helping me. The answers are not in the wine. And this is actually making me worse because it's making me less productive. It's making me feel like crap in the next morning. And I'm like, this is just not serving me. So it's stopped drinking almost completely, but also really backed off a lot. And I would get in the bathroom, and as soon as my mind would start to have that thought again of what death might be like, I would just think of anything. oh my gosh, I got to empty the trash. Oh, my nails look like they're chipping. Oh, I've got to take the kids to the mall tomorrow. Even if I had to do none of that, it was just my way of tricking my brain to say, we're not going there. This is not happening tonight. Okay. I'm going to get some sleep. We're going back to bed. We're not crying. We're not having something. We can't control it anyway. I can't control it. So stop. And after doing this for a couple of weeks, like then my brain just didn't do it anymore. One day I went to the bathroom in the middle of the night and I was like, oh, we didn't go there. Perfect. Okay, great. So for me, that was sort of like the beginning of this transition out of it. And then I found the book and I started writing the book. And once you change one thing, that's like the first key, like changing that one thing then allows you to see everything else in your life from a different perspective. And then you can change so many other things. It becomes like this incremental, like snowball. Like once it starts rolling and it's going in the right direction, it's like, it's great because then you're just get permission to pick up your whole family and move from New Jersey to South Carolina or completely change your job, whatever it is that you want to do. It becomes so much easier.
It's always, I mean, that's sort of using substances, alcohol, drugs, pornography, whatever it is to close that gap between who you are and who you truly are, and that is either done via a false high. The problem is there's a high, but then there's a low and it leaves you with this gap. Or else you choose to go on a journey to close the gap. I mean, it's funny. I call it my midlife opportunity. It's like it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that.
So you switch up the crisis, right? You're saying, well, okay, I give myself permission to lose my shit, to go crazy, to do whatever, right? And do that. I mean, does that make sense to you?
It does. And I love that because a lot of people that I've worked with or that are in my circle have said, Karin, we hate when you use the word midlife and we hate midlife crisis because we don't identify with that. We don't want anybody to know that we're not super happy with life, So they'll come to me and they'll say things like, well, their words, not mine, but like, I feel like a frumpy, tired mom, or I don't feel sexy anymore. I want companionship. I've spent my whole life going after my career. And now I'm, woken up and realize I need another person to share this life with. Like that's a hole for me. So they come to me with all these different things, but they never say, Karin, I'm having a midlife crisis because they don't want to identify with that. So I love that you say midlife opportunity because it really is an opportunity to completely reinvent yourself and create this life that you love, that you want to wake up and jump out of bed in the morning and go live.
Well, what do you think? I mean, because have you ever been this version of you before?
Oh, sure. I mean, to a degree, I think, yes, when I was following my dreams, when I was acting and right out of college, I mean, I was so full of life and excited. And, I sounded a lot like I sound now, very positive. And if you could see me, and actually, if you go to my website, karinfreeland.com, and you go to /masterclass, you will actually see a picture of me when I was angry Karin in corporate. And I have this picture because my son snapped it of me when he was playing on my cell phone while I was trying to work at the kitchen table. And I have a very angry, mean looking face on. And I say, I will show you how to go from this depressed workaholic to happy, thriving woman, right? Like I will take you on that journey just like I went through. And so then I got very toxic and now I'm happy Karin again and living the life that I always wanted to live.
What are your values? Do you know what your values are, your core values or your soul values?
Yeah, sure. So, I think to an extent, I've really grown spiritually since moving to South Carolina, and I have put a lot more stock in my my values around God and being a woman of faith, which, in New Jersey kind of wasn't really fashionable or like something that many people talked about. Most people dropped their kids off for, religious education, and then they went home and didn't go to church and didn't come back and then go as a family. It was just kind of like, well, we're giving it for the kids. But my boys had gone to Catholic school for a few years before we moved. And as I started to get out of corporate and not be as busy, I I found that I could fill some of this time with other things like Bible study and prayer and gratitude and, just what is the most important thing in this world, and it's to be a good person and to, in my case, serve God. Right. And I'm not saying that that's what should be your purpose. But I wasn't always living in a way that was serving him and that was serving those around me. So for me, that's been a big value that I've tapped into and has made my life infinitely better and happier since doing that. I think I also really value like true connection with people. And most of my life, I don't think I've had true connection. I've had maybe a handful of people that I would say are kind of like my ride or dies, like they'll be with me through thick or thin. And most of the other people kind of just come and go as it suits them. So I think right now at this stage in my life, I'm not interested. I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes, it'd be great to have hundreds of thousands of followers and to be able to have that kind of reach and inspire other people. But to me, real, genuine connection and being with people who really see me and see me for who I am and who I'm not, that to me is so much more important.
I mean, if you could, get across to anyone a message, I mean, what is the message that you really want to leave people with, even if you're not able to say it, or, you have to sort of phrase it in a different way, what's the thing that, you try to get across to everyone?
Yeah. The answers are within you. You just have to be willing to look at those answers. I knew for many years before I left corporate that I was not happy there, that I did not want to be there. And this was not my home, but I was not willing to look at the signs and I kept pushing them away. And it wasn't until I really took that long, hard look in the mirror and got honest with myself that I was able to find a pathway out. And I remember very much so, right, during my whole wine binging midlife crisis, asking everyone else, what do you think I should do? What do you think I'd be good at? What, should I just get a different job at a different company? Or, who do you know? Could I get promoted? Could I work harder and longer hours? Like, I don't know, like that was going to help. But I was always asking everybody else for my out. And the problem with that is they can only tell me so much. Yeah, Karin, you're a great B2B marketer. You should get a job doing this at this company, B2B marketing. And it's like, I don't want to do B2B marketing anymore. I don't like this. It's not making me tick anymore. It's not invigorating me. But that's all they knew me as. So they could never have said, you know what, you should write a book, Karin, or you should become a life coach. Like that wasn't even something that would have been on the radar. So that's what I mean by like, you have to turn inward and go to yourself and deep those depths of your subconscious. And for me, so much of that came out via journaling. So I don't know if any of your listeners enjoy journaling, but I will tell you, for me, it has been a very therapeutic and a great practice because that is where most of my limiting beliefs and true feelings and desires and dreams, and that's where it all lived, was in that journaling, in the safe space where I didn't have to show a single person. I knew nobody was ever going to read it. And I could talk about how I wanted to be on, Oprah's book club, or, I wanted to be an actress, or I wanted to get, I'd love to be a stand-up comedian. I think that would be like the ultimate fun job. But like all these dreams and things that, I may or may not ever pursue, but I can get them out of me and I can look at them and then examine. All right, well, this is all the stuff that I want to do. This is all the stuff I want to accomplish. Where am I going to start? Because you can't do it all, right? And, for those of us that have big dreams, I mean, yeah, maybe some point you can do it all, but you can't do it all right now, or you're going to do some of it pretty crappily, right? So it's like really honing in on like, what are the 3 to 5 main things that I want to go out and do and actually take action to make it happen? Yeah, I'm going to commit to that. And the other stuff, like for me right now, like stand-up comedian and stuff, it's just like on my radar, but I'm not doing anything about it, and maybe when something else that's super important to me right now falls off, then I'll slot something else in. So that's kind of been my process. But I think so many times we spend our days comparing ourselves to someone else, looking at what others have and asking them for the answers when it's all inside of you and buried deep sometimes. And it takes some work to draw it out. But when you least expect it, it's going to come about. And that's why I always tell my clients, I'm like, trust the process. I know it feels like you might feel still a little stuck after the first couple of sessions. Maybe things are still not super clear. And then all of a sudden, one day you're going to see something or watch something, or somebody's going to say something and you're going to be like, oh, that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it all just clicks into place.
I mean, what is your learning style? I mean, you talked about journaling there, but learning for yourself, is it down to reading, goal setting? How do you keep on top of it all?
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of digital learning. I mean, we're so fortunate these days with the internet. I mean, you can pretty much find a YouTube video on just about anything. I had a client come to me and she wanted the help with dating. And I'm going, I've been married for 13 years and we dated for 9 prior to that. Like, I had my own little moment of like inferiority. Like, how am I going to help this woman with dating when I'm not technically a dating coach? And so I went out and I found the best dating podcasts and I found the best dating profiles to follow and connected with some other coaches who were in the dating realm and, read some stuff and was like, okay, and came up with a game plan for like how we were going to conquer this together. And of course, like most things, it's never just about the dating. There's like 100 other things in the life that we got to sort of get cleared out, like not being a workaholic so you can actually have time for dates and all that stuff. But yeah, I think just reading and journaling and watching videos and being open to asking questions that you think might seem like they have an easy answer, and risking potentially feeling stupid or looking stupid, and just being open to having conversations that you wouldn't normally be open to having. You just find the biggest insights sometimes in those places.
With that, I mean, do you find, do people get you? I mean,
oh,
in a nice way?
No, you know what? That's a powerful question. Do people get me? I don't think so. I mean, I think people think they get me. I think a lot of people think they get me. I think a lot of people put me in a box. And when they hear that I've written a book about the ins and outs of my vagina, there are so many assumptions that come with that. So many assumptions.
Well, just break this down. So what box do you in before they hear about the book or anything else? What box do you perceive that you're put into?
Yeah, well, certainly when I was in corporate, I mean, I was in the box of she has it all together. She's so focused. She's so driven. She's so ambitious. She is very powerful. She's smart. She, is very direct, doesn't take no for an answer. And many of those things were true, but there was this whole perception that I have it all together. Meanwhile, I'm at home crying my eyes out in a bathroom every night, or crying in the car in the parking lot before I go into work. And, there were so many other things in my life that I don't think people saw. I think people think sometimes, well, all she cares about is money, or she's super bougie. And I'm really not. I mean, there was certainly a period of my time where I never had money before, like when I lived in Miami and we were acting, our joke in our family, me and my boyfriend at the time, was, what do you want for dinner? Raviolis, or raviolis? And it was like, I have canned raviolis, I have frozen raviolis, or I have fried raviolis. That's all we can afford to eat. And I used to go and eat at the restaurant because I didn't have enough money to afford food. So I would pretend like I was interested in how we made the dishes so that I could better explain it to our customers. And really, I was just like, I'm hungry. I need a veggie burger for breakfast. So I think there was a point where money was very important to me, but I think people misread my excitement about, wow, I've never had something like this before. This is so cool that I can pay my own bills and I can buy something flashy for myself, with maybe an obsession for money. Or like they couldn't have me maybe over to their house because they thought I might judge them, when really, I come from humble beginnings. Like wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth, like I'm just kind of like everybody else. I don't know. So that might be sort of a box that I think people probably put me into. And
so then the book comes out.
mm-hmm.
How are you judged then?
Well, it's funny because I had some friends call me right after I announced the book originally, like before it was even published. And they were like, do you have an open marriage? And I was like, no, what would you think that? They're like, well, I don't know. What could you possibly write about your vagina in a whole book? And you've been with Danny for so long. And I'm like, yeah, but like, there's a lot of things other than just sex that you experience. I'm like, okay. So I'm like, this is what people think of me, that I have an open marriage. Oh my gosh. Or people, which I don't want to talk about because I just know like it's so polarizing, but people automatically assume certain political affiliations or certain thoughts about whatever, you name it, just because, oh, well, you wrote this book about your vagina. And I'm like, what does that have to do with anything? So I think there's just a lot of assumptions that people make. And then, it's like, okay, now you're coaching and people are like, wow, you're so brave. They think, oh, you must be so brave because look how fearless you are. And you're just living this whole other life. And it's like, I mean, yeah, but I get scared sometimes. I get nervous, I get worried if I'm doing the right thing or, if I'm going to have enough clients to pay the bills or whatever, it's human. That's normal.
Do you feel, have you been able to then, regardless of what other people think, have you been able to then sort of demonstrate yourself fully to the outside world? Do you feel there's more to give? Do you think there's, more to unveil?
Oh, I think there's always more, but I think this is a tough time because cancel culture seems to be sort of the new flavor. So I do feel there is a level of authenticity that really no one can bring because no one is immune to potentially being canceled. And I think this comes in all different shapes and forms. And actually, I've probably talked more about my spirituality on this podcast than I have in pretty much any other podcast, because even though you would think that wouldn't be a negative, there are people who really will be very turned off by the fact that you've even mentioned God. I actually had one woman who sent me a pretty interesting, scathing message about how she could no longer support me because I mentioned Bible study in a LinkedIn post. I was like, okay, I mean, that's your choice. And if you, that to me speaks volumes about the amount of joy you have in your heart, because when you have joy in your heart, you don't spend your day trolling other people's social media feeds and telling them what they can and can't post. I mean, I see infuriating things all the time on social media. And you know what I do? It's called SOB. Scroll on by. Like, I could leave a comment, sure, but what good would that do for me, for that person, for all the people watching the comments? We're just going to start a fight. We think differently. I'm going to let that go. Like, this person who I'm probably scrolling by isn't a person in my real life. They're not a person that I have any bearing over or has bearing on my life. Like, why do I care? Okay, if that's how you feel, if that's what you want to post about, that's your business. Next, and just not letting it get to me. But, I think it goes back to, again, just how much joy do you have in your heart that you're letting these little things fester and steal your joy.
So there's something, as you say, if you are follow religion or spirituality or whatever, and I find it ironic that people, if they take offense to it or they come from a religion or belief themselves, and you're like, well,
yeah,
regardless of where you come from, are we not all supposed to love each other? So for you to judge me, then, it says more about you than me, right? But
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's a big realization, and taking judgment out of every day. I mean, we're human. We're going to judge people sometimes, but it's a matter of catching it and then stopping it, or, saying, oh gosh, I really shouldn't have said that. I just judged that person. And there's plenty that they could judge me about. Like, just having that realization just gives you so much more power to control your day and to live a happier life. Than when you allow yourself to just get sucked down that rabbit hole. And I call out my husband all the time. I'm like, you're judging that person, or, why are you talking bad about that person? He's like, okay, you're right. I'm sorry. And then we like are accountability partners almost for each other.
Mm. Well, what are you capable of?
Anything. I mean, really, I did well, I guess I shouldn't say anything because I can't sing to save my life. I've tried. I'd love to be able to sing, but it's not in the cards for me. But so I say anything knowing that of course we all have some limitations, right? There are certain things physically I cannot fly. There's things that we just can't simply do yet, maybe. But I really believe that I am capable of anything that is physically possible and that I set my mind to. So I don't know, like the sky's kind of the limit. And at the same time, and I want to do things I'm capable of, but that also follow my dream, what should I say, are in line with my values and my goals. So there's lots of things I could do, but that doesn't mean that it's something I want to do or should necessarily do. So right after I left corporate and I sort of staked my claim as a coach and I said, I'm writing this book and this is my new life. I had someone, because I think sometimes, we get tested by the universe. I had someone who was a good friend, a colleague. I had worked for him for years, come to me and say, I have an opportunity for you. And I'm like, what? No, I don't want an opportunity. I'm good. Like, I just got this whole plan. And he said, I have an opportunity for a chief marketing officer role. Okay. CMO was my dream role. Like, that's what I was gunning for the whole time I was in corporate. I finally break free. And now there's like this little carrot. Hey, you want the CMO role? Nice, cool startup in Silicon Valley. You'll be on Squawk Box and all these different shows, unveiling the company, and we're going to sell, and you're going to make, life-changing wealth for, wealth creation for your family. And I'm like, you have to be kidding me. Like, please tell me you're joking. Like, this is not coming to me right now. And I, obsessed about it for a couple of weeks. What am I going to do? Talk to my husband about it. And every time I would bring it up, I would have these overwhelming heart palpitations in my chest. And I was like, this is my body's way of saying, no, this isn't what you want. You don't want wealth creation. Not that there's anything wrong with wealth creation. I do want wealth, but you know what I mean? Like, that isn't my goal. My goal is not numbers on paychecks anymore, like, at least not from this avenue, not from working in a corporation. Yes, I would love my coaching to blow up and the book to blow up and be a huge success. And we'll have plenty of wealth creation there, but doing it on my terms, on my time frame, with, the amount of time that I want to give to these things. And so I turned it down and I said, no, so yeah, I would have been totally capable of that role, but it was not what I actually wanted to do. It wasn't where my heart was calling me. So I guess that's my long-winded way of saying, yeah, I think I am capable of anything, but I also have to remind myself sometimes that just because you're capable of something doesn't mean it's what you actually want to do.
Yeah. And that's, for many, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? What do you actually want?
Yeah. And it's really hard to figure that out when you're a workaholic and you're busy 24/7 and, acting like, oh, this is so important. I can't watch my son's baseball game because I have to respond to this email about a marketing campaign. Like, I'm sorry, there's no emergencies really in marketing. Like, other than like somebody put up the wrong social media post or your social media feed got hacked and there's like pictures of boobs or something, like there's really very few emergencies in marketing, yet everything's always a fire drill. And I, that's why I felt like I never had any control over my life, because I was just doing whatever everybody else wanted me to do. And then I used that as a narrative to say, well, I'm really important. I'm really adding a lot of value. Look how busy I am. And so for people who are on the busy bus, I want to invite you to come onto a different bus. It's called the productivity bus. And busy and productivity are not the same thing. So I promise you will much more enjoy being on the productivity bus than just the busy bus, because you could be busy all day long and accomplish nothing, or you could do one or two things during the day, make a massive impact and feel so accomplished, and actually have time to eat lunch and breathe and take a shower and whatever else it is that you've been neglecting.
What's it going to take to get you all the way?
Ooh, what is it going to take to get me all the way? There's still work to be done on disassociating in my mind the numbers on a paycheck and the numbers in the bank account and my worth. And I think that is, we're close, we're getting close, we're getting there, and I'm leaps and bounds from where I used to be. But some of these old habits, they die hard. And when it's been a part of your narrative for a good 16 plus years, there's healing there. And there's healing from workplace trauma. There's a lot of the bullying and stuff that I experienced. At one point, I really felt like I was being hazed. Just some of the ways that people have treated me. I think there's still some forgiveness in there that needs to happen, but it's all things that are within my control. And I think that's the biggest thing for people to remember, because we spend so much time pointing at all the external factors going, well, I'll be happy when this happens, or I'll be happy when I make this amount of money. I'll be happy when my husband acknowledges the work that I do around the house. I'll be happy when my kids appreciate the fact that I pick them up every day from school, when I could be doing a million other things or whatever. When we stop looking for others to change and we go, you know what? Yeah, these are some things that are bothering me. These are some things that I don't love. How do I fix that from my perspective? How do I shift the way I am looking at it or the way I feel about it? And then move through that, and I'm the only one that can change. I cannot change how people treated me. They can't, even if they called me up tomorrow and said, I'm sorry, I feel terrible about that. You still did it. It still happened. You still tarnished my reputation. These things happened. Doesn't matter how they feel about it. It matters how I feel about it. And I have to learn to let those things go. So I think that's what it'll take to get me the whole way.
Isn't it amazing how we generally know what we need to do?
Oh, that's like the biggest thing I say to all my clients. I have them come to me and they'll say, Karin, here's all the stuff I want to get done, or here's how I think I get there. And I'm like, great. Why haven't you been doing it? Well, I'm not great at setting deadlines for myself. And no one's holding me accountable. So I just keep pushing it out. I'm like, great. Well, if you sign up with me, I'm like, that's going to change. You're going to actually get this stuff done. You ready to do that? And some people aren't. Some people think they like the idea of change. And then when it comes to actually doing it, they get scared and they don't want to change. And honestly, I would say more times than not, it's because they're scared of success. They're scared of actually losing that narrative of the woe is me, or the victim mentality, or that identity that has really become a piece of themselves. They're scared of success because that means different friendships, different relationship at home, different, maybe moving somewhere else. I mean, there's so many things that success can impact that scare people, that they will actually self-sabotage and do the exact opposite just so that they don't succeed, which seems crazy, but it's what we do sometimes.
Why? What's the driver there? I mean, is that part of your growing up? Is it conditional, behavioral, habitual paradigms, whatever, or all of the above?
Yeah, all of the above, I would say. I mean, and it's different for each person. And I think that's where having a coach or journaling or having a therapist, whatever, someone that you can talk to will help unearth some of this, because we're going to hear things in you that you maybe don't realize yourself. So, I was talking to one client and she was talking about her marriage and some challenges that they were having. And so I just asked her, what was your parents' marriage like? And she started telling me and how they got divorced and how the mom was always nagging the husband and this, that, the other. She's like, and then she had the light bulb moment. She goes, oh my God, I'm doing what my mom did. I've become my parents' relationship. So of course you can, because you've been obsessing your whole marriage about not turning into your parents, that all your brain hears is turn into your parents. And so you've actually created this self-fulfilling prophecy because you spent so much time basically saying, I don't want this thing to happen, that you created that thing. So now it's like, well, let's design the marriage that you want. What does that look like? How do you interact with your husband? How do you talk to him? Great. Like once you come up with that blueprint, let's put it into action. Let's try it. And now you're going to basically retrain your whole brain how your marriage should be. And so luckily they're still married. This is the last check I got. So it really works, but you have to put the work in and you have to be willing to change and do things differently.
Hmm. Tell me, what are you great at and what are you terrible at?
Oh, I don't, that's not always so hard to toot your own horn sometimes.
Well,
What
that's
am I great
interesting.
at?
Are you better at giving or taking or receiving, I should say?
I'd like to think I'm better at giving, but I don't know. I guess we'd have to ask those closest to me. I feel like I'm in a place now where I am giving more than I ever have. I think I'm really good at getting people to think differently and supporting them in a positive way. Giving them tangible tools and takeaways and things that they can really implement in their lives today to make a difference and keeping them motivated. I think I'm really great at that. What am I terrible at? Being patient. Being patient. And that's a typical type A personality. I've always been like, give me a target, I'll hit it. Give me this and I'll do it. Like, tell me the blueprint from A to B, I will see you there. So for me, now being in business for myself and creating things on my own and being patient and waiting for people to discover the book and get the book and tell their friends about the book and have it get to the status that I know it should be, that's hard. It's really hard to sit back and just wait and wait and wait.
It's super interesting, especially, obviously the creative side of you, because you use very kinesthetic language, very feeling, very, sort of touch and feeling based. I mean, does that make sense to you?
Yes. I'm not very auditory. Like if someone just sort of speaks things to me, I have a hard time staying engaged and following. And then if you add in the visual components, that helps. But no, like for me, I'm hands-on. I'm like, roll up the sleeves, jump in there with you. Like, and I was always like that at work too. Like, with my team members and stuff, it was like, no, show me how this works. I want to see it in action, like I need to fully experience it myself in order to be able to, share it with other people. And I think that's why I got certified actually as a coach. Because you don't actually need to be certified as a coach, believe it or not. That's one of those professions that pretty much anybody can say they are and just be. But for me, I was like, no, even though I've had some coaches, it was like, I wanted to go through a formal program and really learn hands-on, like this was my process and my process works really well, but I know not everyone thinks and acts exactly the way I do. They're going to need other tools and other angles. So I went through the whole program and I did all the exercises and I got my hands dirty. And I think it made me a better coach because I was able to go through that process.
Well, that makes sense. And who do you take after in your family? Do you take after anyone? What's your...
That's interesting because my mom never, well, I shouldn't say she never worked out of the home, but she had very small jobs. She really enjoyed being a mom. Like I never really had chores growing up. Like she made my bed, she would clean my room. Like she was there when I got home from school. She made snacks for me and my friends. They'd be like, your mom's so great. She makes us snacks. And I'm like, oh God, would she get out of this house? She's always here. It's so annoying. As a teen, it's like, give me some privacy. So I would say her in the sense that, she's very social. She's a very social butterfly and, very active, has, lots of friends in the community and where they live now. And so I think I take after her in that sense, but we've always had very different ideas of, work and what role that would play, and I think there were parts of me at times where I felt guilty as a mom that I wasn't more like her as a mom, or I didn't give my boys more of that dedicated attention when they were younger. But like I said, I've sort of come to terms with, I wasn't a present mom for a few years, but now I'm making up for it. And I'm have shifted to be the mom that I want to be. My dad, I think, probably had a bigger impact on my corporate life because he always worked, and he actually went back to school and got his master's when I was in high school. So much of my adult child life, I saw him at the kitchen table at night or the dining room table working. and doing work. And I think a lot of that impacted probably subconsciously my workaholic behavior, because my idea of success is working late at night and, being really dedicated. So that's sort of a loose connection that I probably make there. And, he's the one I usually call for, advice on stuff. If I'm like buying a car or whatever, like I still call him. I'm like, even this weekend, I'm like, we're trying to make pizza dough and it's really like watery. Like, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, okay, do this. And, so he's sort of been like my Sherpa through life, if you will. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have anyone else in my family really that's like sort of chase their dreams to this extent. I don't have like a laundry list of actors and dancers and people in Hollywood or whatever, that have sort of followed that creative. We don't have like a ton of artists per se. But my aunt had her own business for a while. My sister's had her own businesses now for a while. So I think some of that social proof was helpful for me to see other people in the family not necessarily following the traditional corporate route, and gave me some permission to explore and spread my wings again.
It's always interesting, that you can just take this time for you to reinvest in you, to really just let yourself shine. And, I mean, what's the future going to look like for you? I mean, what's on the bucket list? And,
Oh, well, yeah, like I said, I mean, I would love to turn the book into a TV show. We've sort of written comedic 10 episodes. It's very like Wonder Years and Sex and the City sort of meet in the middle. But that would be really fun. I would love to just take it up a notch and turn it into something a little bit bigger, a little more visual, if you will. So that would be great. I think just expanding the coaching practice and, reaching more lives. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, right? How many more women can I save from having a midlife crisis and waking up like me and having panic attacks and not showing up and being the best wife and mom or friend or aunt or cousin or whatever they are, whatever those roles are that they identify with, for their lives and the people that they touch. Because when they change, everybody around them starts to change. Like when I first started my social media feed, I didn't know what to post. People was like, you need a platform, you need a following. And I'm like, great, what will I post about? How about my workouts? So I started posting my workouts and people started messaging me. Oh my gosh, since you started posting your workouts, I'm working out more. Like, this has really inspired me to get back in shape. Like, thank you so much. And I'm like, great. Like, that's awesome. That's what I'm trying to do, is inspire other people. And then they were confused. They're like, are you a coach for fitness? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I mean, that's one piece. Your health is one piece, but it's bigger than that. So I've refined my social following a bit now since then to refocus things and make it more clear about what I do. But I guess that's always evolving. So yeah, I don't know, just loving life. I'd love to get a homestead and have chickens and raise some animals and just really live like a much quieter lifestyle than I've lived most of my life. And I've worked so hard. I started working when I was 14 years old and I haven't stopped. I mean, even though I work a lot less now than I did then, I mean, there were days I went to bed with my cell phone. Like, I was on calls at midnight creating PowerPoints for the next morning. I mean, when I was chief of staff, sort of at the height of my career, I worked 24/7. There was no off switch, and that whole year is kind of a blur. Like, I don't really remember much of it, in and out of, flights here and there, corporate travel and all that fun stuff. And so now I'm like, I just want to slow down and enjoy life. I don't want to be go, 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 go all the time. So I don't know, but that's where my head's at today. And like I said, in 6-7 years when the boys are gone, I don't know, maybe I'll get a chief marketing officer job somewhere and I'll have a lot more boundaries that I set, and I'll be a better boss and a better leader. And I don't know, we'll see.
What was your first job out of interest? Saying you were 14?
Yeah, I was babysitting at the church. So while the parents went to mass and they didn't want to bring their little kids who might be little and, make too much noise, I would babysit for them. And then I would obviously babysit for other people in the neighborhood. And then when I was 15, I got a job as a checkout girl and the bagger. Actually, I started as a bagger at the grocery store. And then I moved up to checkout girl because, I mean, what kid does not want to push all those buttons at the grocery store and make all those clicky sounds? So I did that for a few years, and then I don't even remember. Then I went to college, I guess, and I waited tables. I was a hostess at Applebee's and Outback, and was in food service for many years, and then finally got that job selling blackberries.
That's the thing. It's interesting. Blackberries now, I mean,
so outdated, right? Like, I know, I don't think anybody has a BlackBerry anymore.
I don't think they had the market and then they lost the market, but yeah, no, it's
that's what happens when you don't innovate, right? When you don't reinvent yourself. And it's such a normal thing. But again, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about getting stuck and getting frustrated and having a midlife crisis because, again, we're embarrassed or we're ashamed or we think people won't understand. And so many people have reached out to me and said, Karin, I'm going through the same thing, or I went through the same thing. And I'm like, yeah, we got to talk about this. We got to take the stigma away from it, make it okay.
Do you have a set of rules, or do you have a mantra for life, or the way you conduct yourself or your business?
It kind of changes from time to time. So no, I wouldn't say that I have sort of a dedicated mantra that I live by at this point. I just try to keep my faith, at the forefront of everything. And when I first got married, we did like not the baby shower, the wedding shower. Everybody did a recipe card and they gave a recipe for a happy marriage and a good life. And so some people said, like, never go to bed mad, and, like all those sort of things that you would typically tell a new couple. And I remember one woman said, put God first, your husband next, and your children next, and then you will have a great life. And I think so many times I remember putting my kids first, and that didn't always work out the best, right? And I wasn't always listening to what God was telling me, and I wasn't always listening to my husband. And now I've really tried to go back to that original recipe of putting God first, giving him the big stuff, the stuff I don't know how to handle, the stuff I don't know how to work through. He'll help me out. Going to my husband and saying, like, what is this life we're creating? Are we spending enough time together? Are we, connecting the way that we should be connecting? Are we both happy in this relationship? If not, what can we do to fix it? And then putting the kids next. And so that if I just sort of follow that recipe, it seems like most days work out pretty well for me. But we're human, so we all have those days, Yeah,
no, it's one of those things. I mean, you're saying obviously God and well, do you call it religion, spirituality? I mean, how do you define it?
I mean, if I'm authentically being myself, no, I call it religion in my personal life. I call it God. But I think this is, again, where that cancel culture, or you're trying to appeal to this broader audience. So we say things like spirituality and the universe. And but God, in my view, God created the universe. So I don't mind using those terms. But I think it's just a matter of, like, I never want to do anything to detract someone from the message, because it's a big message that can really apply to everyone and anyone, regardless of your spiritual background. Like, even if you don't have a religious background, or you don't believe, even if you're an atheist, like, you can still live life to the fullest while you're here. You can still put others first. You can still, like, there's so many things that I talk about, you can still find the answers within yourself, right? That can apply to you, that I'd hate to say something where you go, oh, well, I don't want to listen to her then, because she's just going to force her beliefs on me. And that's why I love life coaching so much, because it's not about my beliefs. My beliefs are absolutely irrelevant when I am coaching someone. I need to work within your beliefs, because what works for me isn't going to necessarily work for you in the way that you see things. So I never tell clients, like, this is what you should do, or you have to do this. I'm like, let's explore some options. Which of these options work best for you? Why do you think that works best for you? Why wouldn't this other one work for you? Okay, we've looked at all the options. We've presented all the ways that we could go about this, but you are in control of your own life. So you get to pick what that is and how you're going to move forward. So I guess that's like how I would maybe answer that question.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's different views, and spoken to all different people, and the God concept seems to be fairly consistent, but it's whether then people subscribe to a particular religion under which they they fulfill their religion or spirituality or whatever, and it's just always interesting. It's I mean, out of interest, do you think you've been here before? Do you think you'll be here after?
So this was a lot of what kind of fueled some of those panic attacks, because I think there was a shadow of doubt of what was awaiting me, right? What was this afterlife experience? You know, after this world is done, where do I go? How do I really know that there's a heaven? I mean, and I think if you've never asked these questions, that fascinates me, because I think we're human. And so we're taught to question authority and question what we've been told and explore these other avenues. And so I wondered, you know, and I had shadows of doubt. And I think I've done a lot of reading and research and looked into a lot of the near-death experiences. And I've found a lot of comfort in books like the 90 Minutes in Heaven, or, you know, just some of the studies that have been done around young children who wouldn't even know that there's such a thing as resuscitation, but then they drew a picture of what they experienced when they had this near-death experience. And there's someone, they can see the doctors in the hospital resuscitating them. And so I don't know, it gives me hope that there is a heaven, there is an afterlife, and that my spirit will live on, my soul will live on for eternity. And hopefully I'm living in a good enough way that I, you know, get where I need to go. But yeah, I think that's been an evolution, and I hope that I'll grow deeper in that faith and have that hope, because I think it is very inspiring, and it, you know, makes me want to show up every day and be the best version of me when I know that there's like this something bigger and better that awaits me. But I didn't always know that or feel that. Because again, this is what I was told. And I'm like, well, okay, so do I just believe this because this is what other people are telling me? Or is this what I truly, truly believe in my heart of hearts? And I had to go through that journey as well.
Well, it sort of leans back into the kinesthetic side of you. It's like, you can't tell me. I've got to see
Right.
it, feel it, or do it.
Yep.
You know, it's like, you want me to learn?
Yes.
Show me, or let me play with it. Let me feel it.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Talk to me about comedy and improv.
Oh yeah. So I spent some time at Upright Citizens Brigade, UCB, in New York City, and really just I loved doing improv at first because it was fun and it was so freeing. And then I think and it's such a great skill. I mean, if anyone wants to be more authentically themselves, just go take a class. I don't care how old you are, how young you are, whatever. Go take an improv class and learn that life skill, because in life, we all have moments where we just need to fake it till we make it, or just improv something, right? Like presentation slides blank out and suddenly you're like, I got to keep the show going. Okay, how am I going to get through this? And that is such a valuable life skill. So I'm so blessed to have done it. Well, this is another area where I think people didn't get me, or I never felt like I belonged in a lot of the really creative circles. I never felt like I could connect with the other people. Like I always felt like an outsider. And so it was sort of a weird place for me to be. I always felt like I was trying to force it, or like these people were like way cooler and more interesting than me. And I'm just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I don't know. There's just the things they were into, the shows, the Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, like all these other things. I was just like, I don't even know what you're talking about. This is not my world. So I always kind of felt like I was trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And eventually just kind of worked my way out of that whole scene and was like, this isn't for me anymore. It's no longer energizing me. It's now sucking the life out of me. And I was too busy trying to perform and to be funny instead of just authentically being in the moment. So I think that's why I stuck more with like TV and I really didn't do a lot of plays or live productions. I was very much more like your TV, your film, like that was kind of my space.
Might happen yet. Who knows?
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I'm like, who could play a better me than me, you know, if we turn this into a TV show? So I don't know. We'll see.
What's your language? It's not if, it's when, you know?
Right. Exactly. Yes, I love that. Thank you. See, sometimes we even as coaches, we fall back into those old habits, like, and it's so great to have that mirror to be like, wait a second, do you hear what you said? You said if, or when, or whatever. It's like, yeah, it's going to eventually happen.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite joke out of interest?
A favorite joke?
Yeah.
No, but the joke I remember from like being a kid was knock, knock, who's there? Cantaloupe. And then the person says, cantaloupe tonight, my father's got the car. And I swear I was like 18 before I realized that cantaloupe did not mean the fruit. They meant can't elope tonight. And I, for some reason, like told the joke, and I almost peed my pants laughing so hard because I finally got it. And it's not even that funny of a joke, but it was just like to have gone through so much of my life telling this joke to other people, thinking I was so smart. And I'm like, cantaloupe, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like, I finally got it. So maybe that's my most nostalgic joke, but I don't know if it's my favorite.
I'm kind of getting there could be a bit of a dark side to your humor. Is that a fair pickup?
Oh, it's so true. Yes. And there's like these undertones of sarcasm. I think it's a coping mechanism. And I used sarcasm very much for all of my career life to really get through the tough times. And I would say, just sort of like wrapping up the whole book piece, 95% of my book is comedic, but even in the chapter where I talk about miscarriage and my ectopic pregnancy, which is obviously an extremely serious subject, you will find hints of dark humor in there because it is my go-to, when the world gives you lemons, like you might as well just laugh about it, or make a joke.
Yeah. There's something there. Who knows? I mean, that's the thing. Just the very nature of your book and everything else, it's it's fascinating. Tell me, if you were to try and describe your fire in your belly in one or two words, what would they be, Karin?
Passion, energy, excitement, exhilaration. I don't know. That's how I see it.
It's more than two words, but
yeah, I know. I'm so excited about it. So passionate about this fire in the belly.
Nobody can count. Everyone comes back with about 6 words. Like I'm trying to get 2 words here now.
2 words, yes. So I will go with passion and energy.
Love it. I've totally lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
No, at all. I mean, that's part of the fun of it, It's
yeah,
letting it go. Where can people reach out to you? Where can they follow you? Where can they get your book?
Absolutely. So the book, The Ins and Outs of My Vagina, a penetrating memoir, is available on Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And you will be doing something good for others because a portion of the proceeds is going to go to Alliance for Period Supplies to help raise money for ending period poverty. So you're not just helping me, you're helping many women who just cannot afford expensive period products. So that's where you can get the book. You can also find me at my website, KarinFreeland.com. You can check out the book there or the life coaching tab to learn all about the coaching. I am on Instagram and Twitter at Karin Freeland, and of course, LinkedIn and Facebook as well. I will say for folks who are interested in creating confidence in their life, could use some extra confidence boosting support. I'm going to be doing a free challenge May 17th, 18th, and 19th. It's 3 days, doesn't cost you a penny, but a little bit of your time. The only thing you have to do if you show up is promise to implement everything that you learned, because I really want you to experience that life-creating change from being able to create more confidence in your life. So if that sounds like something that would be interesting to you, just go to KarinFreeland.com/confidence and check it out.
Wonderful. And is there a final message you'd like to leave with our listeners today?
You are so much stronger and more capable than you think. You have everything that you need within you to be successful and live the life that you deserve. Go get it. Don't wait another day.
Love it. Karin, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been great fun. I've enjoyed it. Totally distracted myself.
Thank you.
I have no idea the sequence or anything else, but that's a sign of a great guest. So thank you for sharing and for being here and being so present. So we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to be here with you as well.
Thank you.